Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Okay, I'm here. I was goofing around with Jason backstage. Jason causing trouble as usual. Good evening. This is Fade to Black. And today, where are we at? Today is Monday, August 7th, 2023. Okay, I'm unmuted. I got to get my head together after the weekend that I had with Billy Carson and Elizabeth Hoekstra and 20 friends out in the desert. We did a sky watch, but I'll start off the show with, let's do this, man. All right. Help support what we do here. One of the things that I enjoy every day is signing Fade to Black t-shirts, popping them in, putting the label on. I do all that myself right here. The shirt's got to get signed, right? So I do everything here, and it's so much fun. So help support the show. Somebody ordered 3 shirts, 3 different sizes. So I think that was for the family. I don't want to say who it was. That wouldn't be appropriate, but that was really cool. I did that today. Everything ships for free. Everything ships the next day. And there's 2 ways to get t-shirts. You can get a Game Changer membership. And when you get your Game Changer membership, don't forget to put in your address and your shirt size, by the way. Otherwise, Drew's got to go through a bunch of work to go and extrapolate all of that. So don't forget to do that. But you can do it right off of the website. The links are below. You can go and do it. Head over to the website. Everything is right there on the homepage. You can figure out how to do it. Okay? All right. Thank you so much. It really helps what we do here. We have a big team, and I got to take care of business. I got to do what I got to do. What you may have noticed is I have decided, and I did this, started slowing down about a year ago. I just want to do away with advertising. All right. I just, and the advertising that I do is just stuff that supports friends and supports the community. But I just want to do away with advertising. I got to do a break in the middle of the show. My guests may have to go get more coffee or maybe use the facilities or whatever. So we got to, break it up in the middle of the show. But so the best way to help support is here, because I just don't want to do it through advertising anymore. I just don't want to do that. I'm going against the grain. I'm a rebel like that. All right. So help support the show. Get yourself some t-shirts and get a membership. Do whatever you got to do. The links are below. Thank you so much for your support. And there you go. Tonight's guest, OG Fade or Not, one of my best friends and somebody that I've supported so much over the years, and so have you. Our guest tonight is Jason Quitt. The title of the show is So Above, So Below, the Principle. So we will be discussing that and so much more. I love it when Jason is on the show. And we're going to talk about his work and his research and his recently published book that not only did we cover completely here on the show, since then, Astral Genesis, of course, is what I'm talking about. But since the publishing of the book, there's been other work that has been done. So we will discuss some of that too as well. and everything else in the world of Jason Quitt. His website, of course, is thecrystalsun.com. You can go there and order all of your books and reach out to Jason and do that. The links for that are below, social media and over on our website. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only. That's right. There's only one Jason Quitt with 2 T's, and he's right there. Jason Quitt.
Good to be back.
Yeah, that's it. That's all I get. After an intro like that, that's all I get. It's just the stoic. It's good to be here, man.
It is good to be here.
It's so good to be here, man. And
I heard I could come early in the week, and I said, of course, I'll come on a Monday night.
Yeah, and for everybody, L.A. Marzulli was subjected to today the airline industry. Yeah, and it was one of those things. And it was so funny, the email I got from him. Jimmy, man, I'm so sorry, man. Plane got rerouted. And Michelle, our producer here, Michelle, fixed everything. As I got the email, she called and had everything fixed and reached out to Jason. And Jason said, absolutely, I'll come over on Monday night. And so thank you for doing that. That's very cool. So that's it wasn't any mistakes or anything that we did. It was I'm firmly blaming it on who is at fault here. And that's the airline industry rerouting flights on L.A. Marzulli. But he'll be with us on Wednesday night. So, Jason, man, here's I'm going to start outside of the box a little bit, but for the last couple of years, this isn't a political comment. I'm just talking about the reality of the situation. You, as well as everybody in Canada, you guys had severe travel restrictions. All of those are lifted now, and you're free to roam, right? And how does that feel to finally, be able to get back out and see friends again?
It was an amazing feeling because we really did think that we were going to be stuck here for a lot longer. And when the travel restrictions were lifted, I was out the day after. I was in America. I went down to Florida for a month.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. You were on the first bus smoking out of town, all right? That's it. Yeah, that's it. And I wanted to mention something else that, again, I just find this strange. There's a new trend in the world, and you see these trends, right? Trends like right now it's going around. People like to say, I appreciate you, right? It's like, man, okay, even that's getting passe. Another trend is using the word gray, okay? And it's applied to a lot of different things, right? Gray divorce or gray this, gray. And now apparently there are gray potheads. The number one age group where there's an increase in pot smoking is it's the grays, right? It has nothing to do with aliens. And I'm reading all these numbers. And it's pretty shocking to see this. There's this big focus on this age group over 50. And Justin Trudeau pops up in this gray conversation, gray divorce, the highest increase, and it's dramatic. I'm looking at the charts. People are getting married less and less, and people are getting divorced more and more. It's like this weird trend that's going on. And so gray singles, right? Gray single, everything is gray, right? So gray singles, people that are over the age of 50 that choose to live alone. right? And they're not interested in in a roommate relationship. It's like this new gray, and so in this new gray area, gray divorce. I saw this list, and at the top of that was Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau just announced his separation. How many years was he married?
I believe it was 18 years.
18 years.
I can't believe this news is spreading so quickly.
Yeah. The gray world, man. If it's gray news,
yeah,
it's in the headlines.
There's been rumors for years that they weren't living together, that it was just a political marriage for him to be like the family man type image to sell him in politics. So who knows? And now they're playing the single father because he has the kids now. So now they're pushing him up and saying now he must be more likable because he's a single father with the kids at home. So it's a very weird thing in Canada. I mean, there's so much trouble going on in Canada. There's so many scandals in the Trudeau government. It's
in Canada, in nice Canada, where everybody is polite and it seems like you guys are drama free. Every city should just be called Happy Town.
No,
Canada's in Canada. I live at 123 Happy Street in Happy Town in Canada. But that's what do you mean drama in Canada? What's drama in Canada? Maple syrup there's a shortage. Well, I mean, what's drama in Canada?
Well, that would be serious if there was a maple syrup shortage. No, there's a lot of issues right now in Canada. We're going through interference in elections. There's a lot of evidence of Chinese interference in our elections. Political figures being supported by certain groups, being funded to beat out other candidates from overseas. And, this is not just rumors. This is CSIS, the intelligence organization, is putting these out through whistleblowers. So there's a lot of crazy things.
You know what they say? It's the quiet ones you got to watch out for. So it was Canada all along that was the troublemakers. It's Canada all along that has the flying saucers. That's the rumor too, right? We shipped everything up there, and the reverse engineering programs are going on in Canada.
I wouldn't doubt that.
Really?
I've had multiple sightings where I live, and some of them were absolutely out of this world that I can't explain. And some of them were like, we saw a small triangle with the lights and like a red light in the center, white lights around, that was just hovering around our city. And there was, in my mind, it was like, that's not a out of this world vehicle. This is something that we've created, watching this craft. Because it looked like a technology, like an aircraft type of thing. But what is it they call it? TB30, TR3B. Yeah, so it was a typical thing like that I witnessed here. But it looked military for sure. And we live near a military base. It's not too far away from where I live. So whenever you see things in the air, it's probably from that base.
Man, you sound so relaxed tonight. What are you doing? Drinking chamomile tea? Are you eating gummies? What's the deal here? You're all relaxed.
I'm so grounded. I'm like, I've been, since I got back from Contact in the Desert, I've been renovating the entire place, doing everything myself. So ripped up the floors, put new floors, put baseboards, built the shelving unit behind me, built a new desk that you can't see. So it's like, I don't know, something clicked in me where it's like, okay, I'm just going to work with my hands for the next couple months.
So with that though, you've got to get the table saw. So you got that, you've got clamps and big bottles of wood glue and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, I had to get everything. My garage is filled with different saws,
Oh man,
and
so cool.
I just, I don't know. I got a quote for stairs, and when I heard the quote, I'm like, "There's no way I can pay that." So I just said, "Okay, I'm going to learn how to build my own stairs and replace them," and I did.
Nothing
Yeah.
will put a homeowner into sticker shock
Yeah.
more than a quote on new stairs. Dude, you could build a new house cheaper than replacing your stairs. That's not a joke. It's not a joke. I was like, I remember I was talking to this contractor. This is not a joke. I said, "You're kidding, right?" Well, no, it's just, dude, no. No, the answer is no. No, I'm not. No, I'm not going to do. I'm going to fall through the stairs before I pay for that.
Exactly. Exactly. So, if I get the wood, I get the materials, do it myself, it was maybe a quarter
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
cost. And I think it looks great. I think it looks better than what I could pay for. So
yeah.
there
Right
you
on,
go.
right on. So it's Jason the Carpenter Quitt, JCQ. Oh man, that's almost biblical.
I was
Woo!
just gonna say, oh my God. But I don't know. I enjoy challenges. That's because I've never done any of this before in my life, and it was time to get into it.
Let me ask you this: when you've been to Egypt in astrally, right?
Yes.
Okay, but when do you plan on going there? Like in this 2D, 3D existence, like for real?
I actually set up a trip years ago, and it's always Murphy's Law. It w I booked it before the Arab Spring,
Ooh,
so it suddenly everything fell apart, and then I'm like, "You know what? it was a sign, I'm just kinda stay away." And then just kept getting pushed further and further in the distance, and then I'm just waiting for the invitation, Jimmy.
oh, is that? Oh, now it's on me.
Now it's on you.
Oh, okay. So if I could make that happen, you would go?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Egypt is a huge part of my life, and obviously I dream about it, and I want to go. I study it, and I think I will really, dig taking my cameras there if I'm allowed.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what. The answer is yes. I'll have you go. I'll have you come to the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. How's that? Would that work?
That works.
That
I'm
work?
I'm stoked actually to go to that with you. It's going to be an amazing, amazing conference.
You know, and I'd like to talk about that for a second. When the pyramid, Luxor, excuse me, on the strip is something. It's like one of the wonders of the world. It's amazing to look at. You go to Egypt and you see Egypt, and then go to the Luxor. It's actually pretty cool. There's a vibe there that you pick up at the Luxor. Now, I get it. It's the Disney version of Egypt, but the intent is there. You can feel it. You can see it everywhere that you go, and it is a pretty awesome thing to do. Is to hang out. So for us to have this conference at the Luxor, we did that for a reason because it's the Luxor. We could have done it at any hotel at the strip, but it's not the same thing. This is the Luxor, and it's perfect for our community. So you're really going to enjoy it. Now, what's for you? I already know, but what are you going to speak about this year?
I'm going to speak about Astral Genesis, the content of the new book. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use about 90% new examples, and new artifacts and new discoveries in the presentation. So ever since I wrote the book, I wrote the book and we put it out pretty quickly. And ever since then, I keep seeing more and more artifacts, more and more tools and paintings and things from all around the world that have the same code within it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about it and what this is and what Astral Genesis is for people that don't know. It's basically, there's an astrological code or an astrological story in which the sun travels through the heavens, passes through the stars. So you have the 12 constellations, the 12 zodiacs, and as the sun moves throughout the year, it tells a story. It takes on different attributes, and it does this in something very predictable. It's a predictable pattern. It has degrees, like the Earth tilts 23.5 degrees to change the seasons. The sun travels every hour 15 degrees in the sky. So there's very precise angles and measurements associated with the movements, like a watch, like a cosmic watch. And these numbers and the sacred geometry of the movement of the astrology around us is actually encoded within the most ancient artifacts, the most ancient temples, and it's continued on to this day throughout the entire world. So for me, it's one thing to do comparative studies, right? You could say, you could look at one culture and say that's very similar story to this culture on the other side of the planet. Maybe they're connected, but there's nothing to really bridge that connection. Well, if one civilization separated by thousands of years and oceans had a mythology or a tool that carried very specific mathematical measurements of the stars and a story that went with that, and then you go across the planet and you find the exact same thing there, then you could say, how did these two cultures have the exact same information? And right there, in my opinion, that is clear evidence that there is a connection between civilizations that can be proved. And it's not proved through, let's say, stories, because stories can change. It's proved through geometry. It's proved through mathematics. It's proved through the relationship of the stars and the measurements applied to their technologies or their structures. So it is a complicated subject, and it gets into a lot of astrotheology, which is a very fun topic to get into. But that's what I'll be presenting at the Luxor in Las Vegas. And I also get into the pyramids, which I think is very fitting.
It's one of the best subjects. Everybody, and I mean you don't even have to be a part of our community. Everybody's fascinated with that subject. It's just obvious. There is, and Jason, you should check this out. You can get, it's called the Great Courses. Okay, that's the app, the Great Courses, and then once you can get it on Amazon Prime, and you can watch everything on Amazon Prime. Then you have access to it, of course, on your iPad or whatever. But I have been a subscriber to the Great Courses for a number of years. And there's a professor of history here in California. His name's Bob Baer. And Bob, award-winning historian, professor, doctor, and doctorate and all of that. He's really smart, but he's an Egyptologist. So he's in one of the Great Courses, he does a whole thing on hieroglyphs and how to read and write, right? Okay, so that right there is amazing. But he does an ancient history course. It's 48 courses long. That's 48 hours. It's like a semester. It's like a real deal thing, right? And and I've gone through it many times. And I started. This is just last week. I decided to go ahead and just rewatch it. And this is what he said. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because of your comment right there. This is what he says. And you've got to go. Remember, this is an Egyptologist, a professor of history that teaches in the California university system. And I think he teaches, if I'm not wrong, I think he's at Stanford. Okay. So he's no joke, right? He's the real deal. But he says this. He says before the Neolithic, right, which is the new Stone Age, before the Neolithic, around 5000 BC, that the population of Egypt was tribes between 25 and 50 people in each tribe up and down the Nile from the Mediterranean all the way south into Ethiopia. Okay. He says the population at this time was around in the country around 2,000 people. Now, you just got to stop. You stop. It's like, stop. Stop right there. Stop. What do you mean 2,000 people? Because 2,000 years later, at 3000 BC, now you're saying that they had a population big enough to support the building of the pyramids? They had a population large enough to support the bent pyramid, the red pyramid, you know what I mean? Dozier. That all of this suddenly, that these nomadic tribes, now I get the overnight comment that Egyptologists make. One day they were nomadic tribes. The next day we had written languages and we had King Narmer, right? King Mene at 3000 BC. And suddenly we had writing and the Giza Plateau. That's what they've... But he is suggesting a population. There is no way that they had a population growth that rocketed up to 500,000 people in 2,000 years. I just don't see that. So where did they come from? Or are the numbers completely off? Right? Completely. Like the year that this happened, historically, right? Is the year wrong? Is the population density way off? Were there other outside influences from other cultures around the world? A transoceanic communication system? Was the knowledge of the stars and engineering and everything else that goes into this kind of advanced culture? Did it come from somewhere else? And this is exactly what your book presents. And it goes right in the face of somebody like Bob Baer, who I have a lot of respect for, but the numbers don't match, and what we see doesn't match the dogma, does it? It just doesn't match.
No, and this is a trouble for science and archaeology as well, because clearly there's high technology, there's high knowledge, there's a knowledge that is somehow passed down generations. And it's coming from a place of it's a very high knowledge at the start. And then there's a de-evolution of that. It's not like it was a building of knowledge. And a lot of people are saying, okay, look at the bent pyramid. They didn't understand. They started to build it. They screwed up. So they just built it at a different angle right in the center of it. That's kind of like the story. And then they say, okay, once they made the mistakes at the bent pyramid or Saqqara, then they got better, and then they went to the Great Pyramid, and they're evolving their skills, right? But in the book Astral Genesis, I break down the bent pyramid, and I'm showing the angles and what the angles mean, and it's absolute perfection. So it's us that is wrong. It's our perspective that they didn't know what they were doing when they were so smart. When we look at it, we think it's a mistake, but it's not a mistake. It's very precise. So that, that's one part of the book. And, I even had to change a lot of my point of view once I started to go down these rabbit holes, because you start to see that it's highly evolved knowledge of the stars, of the earth, of forces of nature that we still don't understand because, we're modern humans. We have technology. We don't need to know those things anymore. So when you go further back in time, the way that I feel the situation out is that there was something already there. And as people grew, they started to learn and discover what was already there in Egypt and maybe expanded and built upon that. Or people moved in from other places. Let's say, because in the book, I have clear examples of Jed pillars at Göbekli Tepe. So this is how many thousands of years? 8,000 years before Egypt. So how do you have the same exact things in Göbekli Tepe, which is in Turkey, which is not that far away from Egypt?
No, it's not.
But show up later through time, 8,000 years with the same knowledge of that. And nobody's really picked up on that connection between Göbekli Tepe and Egypt. But there is a connection. And I found a connection, and it's mathematically impossible to have these two images that are actually mirror images, identical. Every aspect, every line, every degree is exactly the same, but there's 8,000 years of time between them in two different locations.
Yeah, and the same can be said, the Temple of the Sun in Mexico City, and the Mayan pyramids that were built, the pyramids in Peru that were built, the pyramids in China that were built. And you look at that, and to have there's really honestly only two ways to look at it, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
One, it was just woven into our DNA. And at one point in our evolution, that was going to get triggered in the DNA, and everybody was going to have pyramid visions. This is what we need to build today, right? Okay, so so pre-programmed, triggered computer code that's going to fire off in your DNA, and everybody's going to have the ideas of pyramids at the same time. Okay, so there's that. Or everybody was talking to each other. Right? And which way do you want it? You want to go the DNA route and go freaky deaky? We can do that. Or are we going to go the Occam's razor route and take a look at this and understand that and accept that these cultures had a progenitor at the very top that was giving this information, and it was being distributed around the world? Which way do you want it? Right. But it's not coincidence. That's the part that it's not.
Yeah. And, for example, if you go to Peru and they find these artifacts, they're called the staff gods. And they're basically artifacts of a solar deity holding two staffs or two serpents in their hands. And the oldest example is in a graveyard in Peru. And they've dated that back to about 5,000 years ago, near a pyramid, right? Now, you go to the other side of the world to Egypt, and on the walls of the temples, you have gods holding two serpents in the same position, in the same geometric pattern. If you put an angle from the base of their feet to their hands where the serpent is, it's 23.5 degrees on the wall in Egypt. And on the artifacts in Peru, 23.5 degrees, exactly the same. So you can say, they got the same idea. They like holding serpents for some reason. They have the same idea, and they make artifacts out of the same image or the same symbology. But how is it the same? I mean, it's not just the same. They use the same geometry. So if you drew a line from the center of their body mass between their feet right through their hands, it's 23.5 degrees. How is that a coincidence? It's something that had to be taught and passed down. So for me, you're right. It could actually be both, because I believe that even though we're an individual human being with our own thoughts and mind, there is a spiritual world out there. There is a greater mind that we can tap into. And maybe at one time in our ancient history, humans were programmed differently. They may have been tuned into this other mind that, even though they were individuals, they may have been able to tune into this other type of consciousness. And through that other type of consciousness, they can, through telepathy or channeling or whatever this is, connecting to higher beings, then maybe they were all given these instructions from a spiritual unseen force.
And why the pushback on that? Because if we accept, and so many do, I mean, billions of people accept the stories in the Bible, in different religious texts, in folklore, right, that has been handed down, that, you know, it came from the heavens, or it came from a spirit. And an angel told me. My dead grandmother stepped in and told me. We hear this over and over, and we're cool with that. It's weird. It's weird. You mean you accept the statement that Moses went to the top of Mount Sinai, spoke to God, chiseled out the 10 Commandments, and came down and the voice of God. You're okay with that, right? But anything else is BS. It doesn't make any sense, does it? It's a life of hypocrisy.
Yeah, and when you really analyze the Bible and these ancient texts, it's all about that. It's all about communication with higher forces. It's all about the connection to nature and astrology. And you're not going to find that openly in these texts. It's once you start to get the keys with astrotheology and start to learn the symbolism and archetypes, then you start to realize that these stories are actually so rich in information, even alchemy and biology. It's so rich in this information. And the thing that's so funny about it is a lot of these things, a lot of these orders say, you know, don't look into astrology, don't look into this, don't, you know, angels only existed at this time and never after. Nobody ever spoke to anybody else after these were written. And it not only continues to this day, but it's the same stories that go back thousands of years before the prophets, before the Bible was even written. The same stories, the same astrotheology, the same archetypes. It's all there, and you can find them in all cultures around the planet.
That's right. Yeah. Going back to Moses, you know, such a classic example, because we've all heard the story, right? So, you know, let my people go, and Moses is out in the desert for what? He's out in the desert for 50,000 years, right? Whatever it is. And it's what, 40 days, 40 years. It's a 4. It's
40.
420, 420, 420. Are you saying Moses smoked weed? 420. So he's out there for 420 days. And there is guided by, you ready? A pillar of light in the clouds was coming down and illuminating his path. So you're okay with that. But UFOs with the beam of light we're making that up, right? It's like you can't have it both ways. I'm not even sure if we take the Bible literally in that instance, that I don't even know how people made a connection to God with that. That's ET all the way. Right? It's weird. So yeah, so 23.5 degrees. represented in one thing, and cross-culturally, transoceanic cultures that allegedly have no contact are representing the same numbers and the same math with an astrological connection to it, not only to our history, but messages that are hidden in plain sight. Why is that so hard to grasp? It is not, and the connection is real, Jason.
And the only thing that I have to do with this type of information is draw the lines. So I don't have to really explain it. I just have to show it to people. Like I say, okay, explain this to me. The other day I was on Twitter and someone was posting artifacts from Alabama, Moundville, Alabama, and talking about how it's the path of the souls, and the hand with the eye is Orion, the constellation. This is where the path of the soul is, Orion, which is the same story that you find in Egypt is found in Alabama. It's the same story. But also the symbol of the hand with the eye is also found in Turkey, going back 12,000 years. So it's a very, very ancient symbol. Now, we all know that if you look at from your eye to your hand to the sun, you get 1 hour of time. It's 15 degrees. So this is how we measure time. Also, the constellation Orion, which is the symbol of the winters when everything dies. So it's where you go when you die. It's Orion. It's the symbol, the archetype, as above, so below. If you put your hand up to the night sky, your hand to Orion, it's almost the exact same size. So it's like your hand is Orion. If you line it up to the stars, you can actually see that the stars line up with Orion. So you have this connection between you, your eye, your hand, and the ratios between you and the stars. So, they on Twitter, they were explaining that this means something. And then all I did was I said, okay, let me look at this artifact. And I just connected the dots in the artifact. And they all lined up to 23.5 degrees and 15 degrees. And how do you explain this? With your theories and understandings of the myths and the stories behind these symbols that these tribes had, which we really don't know much about. So it's really just theories today. How does this fit into those theories if I can show you that if you just connect the dots, you have this map on the artifact, and if you try to put any other degrees in there, it doesn't work. Only those numbers work in creating this layout of this artifact that was found in Alabama.
The what did the Mayans call the black in the middle of the Milky Way?
Oh, it was the Dark Rift.
Yeah, the Dark Rift. But they had what was the Mayan word for it?
I have it in my book somewhere.
Okay, man.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
The story is better if you can say the Mayan word because it's cool. I forget what it says. Something Chabalba. Something.
I couldn't say it on a good day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so that's where your soul goes, right? And we were out in Palm Springs this weekend, and the Milky Way, you know how it is out there, in Joshua Tree, and the Milky Way just stretching across the sky in all its glorious colors, and just, man, it's just amazing. But to look at that dark band, but here's the trippy part about it. You tell me how the Mayans knew this. There's something much deeper, but that's where the soul goes, right? Well, we just recently, the astrophysicists out there and the astronomers have been presenting this evidence that that is Sagittarius and our Milky Way colliding. Okay, so and that our star system, our solar system, may not even have originally been part of the Milky Way. It might have been part of Sagittarius. That's another thing. But at the center of that dark rift, you know what is there?
It's the center of
the black hole. The black hole. And now that's nuts. Now, just go back to the mythology and the way the Mayans looked at this, and that is where your soul goes, and that's a giant black hole. And I just don't think, again, that's not a coincidence.
No, and it's the same thing in Egypt, and it's reflected in the Book of the Dead.
Yeah, Chibalba. That's what I was right. Yeah, Chibalba. Yeah, Chibalba. Xibalba. Chibalba. Man, the Fadernauts are so smart. Well, they also know how to use Google, and they're pretty quick at that. You guys are really good at the Google thing. But yeah, right. So think about that for a second. It's and the Black Rift and the Chibalba, and that's where the souls go. And in the center of that is a ginormous black hole. That just blows my mind.
Yep, and between Sagittarius and under the foot of Ophiuchus is the center of the Milky Way galaxy.
Oh, so the new name for the Fadernauts is the Guganauts. This is great. Google, what's Google? Hey, did you hear? We're going to circle back to this, but did you hear? This is yesterday that Elon Musk says the cage match is scheduled, I think, August 25th for him and Mark Zuckerberg. Dude, they're going to have a cage match, and it's going to broadcast live on Twitter or X. It's called X now.
Yes, I did hear this, and it's probably going to be the biggest fight.
This bigger than like Mayweather and Canelo. It's Canelo Alvarez. This is a big deal. This is a big deal.
It's very hard to guess who will win.
Hey, you know what?
Very hard.
You know what? Both of those guys do the same thing, right? Both of those guys every day, they're so rich. They're top of the world rich, right? Richer than anybody. So you know what they do every day? They're in oxygen tanks. They have electrodes all over their body. They're like that dude in Rocky, right? The Russian fighter, right? It's just electronically, and I'm sure that Zuckerberg is in amazing shape, and I bet you.
I think he knows. I think he knows more about martial arts than Elon Musk.
Yeah, man, I'm going to pay for it. Or maybe is it going to be free if it's on?
I think it's free.
Well, it's Twitter, so it's X. Now, okay, so we used to tweet. Birds tweet, right? So that's what tweeting was, right? Right? We were tweeting, but now are we Xing? What's or is tweeting? I got to go respond to my tweet, or are we going to use a sentence like I gotta respond to my ex?
Well,
right?
now you're bringing this up, let's get into some conspiracy here. Okay.
All right.
What is an X? Where does the X come from? Why is an X special? Well, if you go back to Hebrew, it's the mark, it's the tet. It's the 22nd letter of the alphabet. It's the mark of God. What they would draw to Christian you, they put an X on your forehead. All right, so this goes to be one of God's children. They would have to put the mark on your forehead.
Really?
Yes.
Do you think he was aware of that?
All I know is he's been trying to use this. I think he's had this website since '99.
Yeah, before PayPal. Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted this to be like the big thing in the future.
SpaceX, right?
So it's kind of biblical when you think about it.
Oh man, that hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts. I think he should have had hooked X. That's what he should have done. He should have done the Scout Walter hooked. Yeah, the Scout Walter hooked X.
Same thing. It's the same meaning. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the mark.
Yeah. I don't know.
X marks the spot.
I kind of thought when this invitation and this conversation started about this that it was just like funny, haha. Somebody's pushing for clicks and Zuckerberg and Threads and okay, so they're going to have this little thing going on online. I didn't think it would go this far. But man, I hope they do. And when Elon said all the profits of this go to charity, I'm thinking, man, they might actually do this. Like, I think this is like going to be real, but I don't think you can't take Zuckerberg lightly. You can't. There's something about Zuck, man, that kind of freaks me out. He'll do that punch in the throat. Right? It's going to be some crazy.
My call is that Zuckerberg is going to submit him somehow. He's going to get him in some lock, pull his arm back, and Elon is just going to tap out.
He's going to do some Hoist Gracie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, wouldn't that be this is going to be interesting. This is going to be you know what? They both ask for it. They both, whatever happens. I don't know, but Elon looks big though. I mean, how tall is Mark Zuckerberg?
I don't know. I think Elon is bigger in size and weight. And Elon just has to get on top of him and just hold him down with his body weight. I think that would work in his benefit.
Man, this is going to be great. That's what Hoist Gracie wanted you to do, though.
Yeah.
He wanted you to get him on his back. He would lie on the ground. You remember that? And you go, come on. Let's go. Come down here. I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay, how do we get off on that? Okay, so let's swing this back around. The Chibalba and Sagittarius A, and at the center of that is the black hole, which is in the middle of the Chibalba and the black rift, the dark rift where your souls go. And I sat on the top of this mountain this weekend thinking about that is not a coincidence. That's where your souls go. Right? Whoa. But they couldn't have known, or did they? Right? Or did they?
Well, this goes back to spiritual understandings and the mystery teachings because, this is what got me into this community to begin with. It's the out-of-body traveling. And, in ancient times, this was a big deal. And this was known is that you can leave your body and travel through space, explore. It's like a near-death experience. You can learn about the spiritual world by leaving your body and having these experiences. They also use plant medicines. That was also a huge, huge secret. So they would take sacred medicines, do their ceremonies, and leave their body and travel into the underworld and come back with this knowledge. So it's heavily guarded information, but it's how they derived a lot of this really incredible information that just we've been learning now through science and telescopes. They knew because they can travel and see it with their own astral eyes, I guess.
I have a picture here. Let me pull this up. You have to see this photograph taken this weekend of the Milky Way, and this is what was going on in the night sky. And if I don't pull it up in 2 seconds, if I don't pull it up in 2 seconds, I've got a whole string of images here. Just hang tight. And if it doesn't pop up, right here. You ready?
Yeah.
Look at this. Check this out.
Beautiful.
Look at that.
Doesn't it look like the head of the snake eating a tail?
I don't know about all that, but look at that. Look at that.
That's very clear.
Just stretching across. And so and when you're sitting there and you're looking at the Milky Way like that, right? And you and I have done it at that spot right there. You know, we've done it. But when you see it in person, it is so it's so emotional. Man, it'll make you cry. And you know, you start to look at the Chibalba, and then you think about some of the recent statements that have been coming out about, you know, the black hole in Sagittarius A, and you know, the merging of two galaxies, you know, to create our Milky Way, and what is actually going on. And you look at that and you think, what is actually there, but what the ancients were saying about it. I just don't think, Jason, when you look at your book and you look at the commonalities, not the coincidences, the commonalities between cultures when it comes to astronomy and math, and representing in stone, so it is preserved. Stone is forever, right? Pottery is forever. It takes a lot to break pottery down.
Exactly. And I actually have a picture of what you're talking about in the book. And I think I could pull it up on your screen if you wanted to, but you can see the Milky Way there with the
Yep.
rift.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the path. So basically you start with, you die, you go to Orion, and you enter the Milky Way through Orion. So that's where you start. And you travel down the river. It's like you're going through the river, just like with the ferryman, you know, the ferryman's toll. You have to go into the river. The water is the spiritual transition into heaven or wherever you're going. So basically, you get into the Milky Way and you travel through Orion. You go through Perseus, Cassiopeia, Cephus, and then when you're getting into the dark rift, what do you have to pass through? You have to pass through Deneb, or Cygnus. So Deneb is at the top. Cygnus, the constellation of Cygnus, is usually a bird, but it's like a constellation with the arms out, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the scales. It's the scales. You have to pass through the scales of judgment, enter the dark rift, and then you're basically birthed. You either go into hell or the underworld after that, which is getting into Scorpius, Antares, or you go up through Ophiuchus, through the serpent. So the healing serpent up the rod, the healing serpent that comes from Ophiuchus. So you travel through the dark rift, you go through Serapins, the serpent's tail, come up through Ophiuchus, the serpent's head, go through Hercules, the constellation, and you go right up to the northern hemisphere constellations. And that's where the journey ends with the pharaohs. And that's where they sit at the throne of the gods, is at the top, the head. So it's this whole path of death, going through the river, going through the scales, which is Cygnus, being rebirthed, and coming up into the northern hemisphere. So there is this direct mirror correlation between all these stories and the Milky Way and the stars in the sky.
Now when we come back, we'll get deep into So Above, So Below. But as far as I know, and I've tried to pick up on this, aside from North Korea, okay, so take North Korea off of the table. It's a joke. No, it's not. Take North Korea off the table. Is Egypt and the 3,000 years of pharaohs, right, from Mene, Narmer to Cleopatra, was Egypt the only country whose kings were gods? Right? I don't know. All pharaohs were gods, right? They were gods. They were a god on earth. Was that the only country that did that? they didn't do, as far as I know, all of that was separate. Were there any other countries around the world where their kings were also gods?
Yeah, China, Japan. They were descendants of the dragon kings, the dragon gods.
So you mean the emperors?
Yeah, the emperors.
Okay, that's a family line. Okay, all right, okay. Does that count? Does that count?
Yeah, they were like a divine line, basically.
So Ming, like the Ming dynasty, Ming was a god. Qi was a god.
Maybe I wouldn't use the terms, but they were looked at as deities above the normal human population.
Now, I know the emperors of Japan man, I don't want to say anything politically incorrect, but that was certainly a screwed up way of looking at that family too, as well. Like they were not human.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But also in North Korea as well, they are not looked at as human. They're above the normal population.
But that only goes back 3 generations. That's brand new. That's 1950 stuff. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. It doesn't count. Even the story behind that, I mean, for real. But I guess, and this is what's great. You know what? Nobody in North Korea will ever be allowed to jump on the internet. Ever.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? They would think that everything else, that their truth is, that's how. There needs to be a movie made on crowd control. How to control a crowd, North Korea style. Right? Right? You understand what I'm saying? How to absolutely control a crowd. If Kanye could do that, if Jay-Z, David Lee Roth was close. He could control a crowd. He could he could get the focus together. But how good is your control if you can convince an entire country that you were a god born on a mountaintop? That's crazy.
Yeah. They even in Japan, there are stories of the first emperors coming out of a light on a sacred mountain.
Well, yeah, but that's tied to UFOs. So I'm okay with that. Right? That's like an alien connection coming from the stars. That's not that far-fetched. That's not that crazy. Right?
Yeah. Very rich history. It's accepted.
Is the Anunnaki any different?
No. But again, it's like, are these literal stories or are these allegories of gods or stars in the sky? And this is,
I think there are
the controversy.
Stories. No, I think it's an actual news item. I do. I think it's actual history. The words to describe it, maybe they didn't have the right words back then. But Moses and the pillar of light, or Ezekiel's wheel, right? Or even Anubis and that, and the weighing of the soul and scales. I think that all of this is based in reality. Now, what do we do with, when you look at Isis and Horus and cutting a body apart and reassembling everything but his pee-pee, and then they had to make a fake one. It's kind of like true sounding to me. I don't know why, but it seems like an actual historical event.
In my opinion, after everything that I've looked into, it's, for me, it could be based in historical events, but these stories are allegorical to some very deep understanding that has to do with the so above, so below, or our connection to the stars. Like, for example, you're saying Osiris is cut into 14 pieces. So basically, by Set, which is the darkness, if you look at the moon at a full moon, it takes 14 days to turn it to full darkness. So every day they cut the light off the moon. And then Isis comes and collects. Isis is also the light, collects and puts it back together to bring him back into full glory. So it's another resurrection story, and it's like the cycle of the moon.
Okay, but where's the allegory for the missing penis?
Oh man, because they threw it. Here's the allegory of the missing penis.
It got
Clip
lost.
that.
It got lost in the dark rift.
No. This is the allegory of the missing thing. Is that Osiris is connected to the Nile. All right. So they threw the phallus into the river, into the waters, and a fish ate it, so that he was always connected to the Nile. So that means when the Nile rises, Osiris rises. So that's the whole thing. His connection is now he's connected to the waters.
It's like a Viagra thing.
Basically, when he rises, the waters rises, and that's how you know the Jed is now rising.
So then, why did they have to make a Frankenstein PP?
Is the golden out of the gold phallus, which is a symbol of the sun. It's the obelisk. You know, it pierces the heavens. So
Again,
it's solar allegory.
It's a Viagra.
Yes.
Allegory. Very, very.
There's so many levels to this. Like, how can I tell you this is what it is? There's probably 100 amazing explanations for that story.
Makes sense why you eat seafood and oysters, right, for sexual performance. Think about that for a second. And the best comes from the Nile. I'm just saying, that's just what I've heard.
Okay.
All
Sure.
right. Yeah. Look. Jason is blushing. But the story, see, this is the thing, though. You know, we can laugh and funny ha about this. This story has been repeated for 5,000 years, maybe longer. And this story, when you see how it's depicted, you read how it's depicted, it is very graphic and very direct. I mean, can you imagine telling that story to a 5-year-old? You'd freak them out of their mind, right? But this is part of Egyptian history.
Yeah. And that's why it survived to this day. I mean, the stories have to be relatable. They have to be easy, and they have to be transferred through thousands of years. And I think, these stories carry things that we can relate to or know or think of that could be possible and could happen to any one of us.
I need to go back. I've got a statue of Osiris in my living room. I need to go take another look. I need to see how he's standing.
He's the original Green Man.
Yeah. I've got one. I need to go and take another look at that robotic $6 million man phallus and see what's going on with that.
He's usually wrapped up as a mummy, standing straight.
Green face,
yeah. Because he's nature. He's like I said, the original Green Man. When the Nile rises, nature, vegetation comes back with the black soil. So this is why they say he is risen. It's like springtime, the waters come back, the plant life starts to regain their life.
And that was, I brought this up years ago, and I had a few Egyptologists attack me for this. But look, I'm just trying to look at this with fresh eyes because of I'm going to say it again, man. People, Egyptology is dogma. Most people don't realize that Egyptology didn't start until Napoleon. It did not start. There was no Egyptology before that. There was no study of this, and he shows up in Egypt with 150 scientists, right, artists, engineers to go and look at Egypt and study this and write it down and figure it out, and let's go to work. Now he planned on being there for a couple of months. It turned out to be a longer trip than that because his ships got blown up by the British in the Mediterranean up near Alexandria. That's another story for another time. But Egyptology itself, we can thank for the French for that, including the Rosetta Stone. That was discovered by Napoleon and his troops. So this is new. This is a new science. This is a new study. And when we look at all of this, it's the dogma, this recent modern dogma, most of it being around 100 years old. King Tut's tomb, man, that's 1922. It's like yesterday, right? This is like brand new stuff. Cracking hieroglyphs and how to read them. This is modern stuff. That was 1830, right? This is modern things. All right. So based on that, this is I look at some of the skin colors and skin tones of the Egyptian gods, the Egyptian people, the pharaohs. And you look at this, and I often wonder if there wasn't something else going on, because the dogma suggests that Osiris was this and Horus was this and Isis was that. And even the different gods with animal heads, and there were explanations for that. I'm just wondering if there isn't something else more simple there, and I'm not suggesting that Osiris was a Martian, but I just find it weird, and the skin, the skin colors on the different gods and demigods of Egypt, I think are different than what the dogma says, because it's been repeated, right, Jason? And then people just hear it so many times that it becomes the gospel. It's written down, and it doesn't change.
It's true, and this is where I started to do my research. It was getting into the pyramid texts, so I didn't want to read interpretations of these texts. I wanted to read exactly the translations that as best as I could, going back about 4,000 or 5,000 years, the earliest texts. And in the pyramid texts, it talks about the gods, and it talks about how they're the stars. And it talks about when you die, you go to Orion or you go to Osiris. And they said Osiris or Sa is Orion. And it talked about Canis Major, Sirius. It talked about Gemini, the twins. It talked about Cygnus, like right in the pyramid text. And it talked about how to meet the God in heaven, which was Geb, meet your father Geb in heaven in the northern constellations. And then it was talking about Draco, which is where the North Star used to be.
Right.
So it's like, if you go back thousands of years, it takes the gods and it places them at different constellations. And it says, as you pass through this, it is the same thing with the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It's like, as you're passing through the gates, or as you're passing through the hours, you have to face, you have to face the demons, you have to face the guards, you have to know the names of the gods. And it's the same type of ritual of the soul, or this passing through these constellations, which were given the names of these gods. So again, it's like, is it that simple? Is what, if you just do a direct translation from the pyramid texts of Unas, which is it comes from Saqqara about 5,000 years ago. That's what they believed 5,000 years ago. And then over time, could we have misinterpreted that and said, okay, no, these were physical deities, we've given them personification. And if you go back through Egyptian history, depending on the local group throughout Egypt, because Egypt's pretty big. If you go through local tribes or local temples, they would choose different gods, or different trinities, and they would have their own kind of stories that were slightly different. So you did have different stories and different myths at different temples with different gods. So it wasn't just all cut and dry. There was a lot of variation in a lot of these stories.
There's another part to this, though. And let's go back to Bill Bear and his statement that I brought up earlier, that at 5,000 BC, right, prior to the Neolithic, at the start of the Neolithic, which again means New Stone Age. Okay, right. That's what that means. Okay, so the Neolithic, like I sound like I'm some PhD. I'm not. I just play one on the radio. Is that if we're talking about 2,000 people, a group of tribes of 25 to 50 people up and down the Nile, that the origination and the depth and the detail of that I just said origination, so I'll say origin, right? That origin story. To go back with the gods and the details and the afterlife and how your soul's going to get that kind of theism, that kind of, if you want to call it religion, that kind of belief system, that was strong and detailed, too detailed for scattered tribes to just develop out on the banks of the Nile River. It seems like when you go and you read the text and you see the detail that happened at around 3,000 BC, 3,200 BC to 2750, so about 400 years. That's a pretty developed mindset when it comes to a belief system, isn't it? It seems like it should have been bigger and broader and older. But the historians want us to believe that this was developed literally and virtually overnight, and I don't buy into it.
After everything that I've looked into, I cannot see that as a possibility. This story is so detailed, so rich, and it's repeated and carried for thousands of years after that, with very little changing from it. It had to have been adopted by those tribes, or it had to have been something that was common knowledge throughout many parts of the world at the same time. So, again, it's too complicated, it's too detailed, too ceremonial. And it's so rich. I mean, if you're studying like the mysteries and you're really diving into these old, coffin texts or pyramid text, it's like you could probably write a chapter or even a book on like deciphering one paragraph or one sentence of these ancient stories. That's how rich it is. I mean, I think one full chapter of the book in Astral Genesis was like just deciphering a paragraph from the pyramid text, because that one paragraph, almost every word in its order had so much meaning to it, and you had to know the mysteries and the stars and all these things that are very deep, that most people don't have any concept or understanding of, that you need that kind of background to even decipher what that sentence even means. So it's very rich, very complicated. And like I was showing in the book with the examples, looking at these hieroglyphs, looking at these images of, let's say, Thoth on the walls of Abydos, they're standing in very specific ratios. They have very specific proportions, and if you measured that carving on the wall, if you literally measure every part of that carving, you'll realize that every single detail means something. That it's not just a doodle of a picture of a god on the wall. Is that picture on the wall is like an encyclopedia of knowledge that you don't even know how to open that book yet. It's so rich and so deep, which I can't see somebody just doodling. It's way too complex. So either there's a higher order to this, an ancient secret society that has spanned way back to about 12,000 years that had this knowledge and would come into different civilizations, give them that information and guide them and teach them how to do it. And this is why you had a priestly class that did the depictions, that wrote the ceremonies, that made the hieroglyphics, because every single detail had to be done with religious supervision. Because if anything was a mistake or altered, basically it was useless. It had to be redone.
I have been reading, you remember the movie Stargate, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's this scene, you see it a few times in the movie with James Spader, and he's got his books with him, and he's stuffing them in his backpack. And when he's at the museum, he's doing his speech, and there's another scene with him. He's like in a hotel room, right? And he's got these books laid out. And one of the books that is in these scenes is Egypt Before the Pharaohs, okay, by Michael Hawthorne. It's out of print, but I've got the hardback. I got a first edition of the book. And it's a fascinating read. And I think for anybody that's into this subject, it's a book. It's interesting that book is in the movie. Okay, Roland Emmerich put that in the movie with brutal intent. Okay, so anyway, in the book I read this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Of course.
You know what a sickle is?
Yeah.
You know what it's used for?
Yes.
Okay, it's not when dude comes and gets you in your bed at night.
It's the harvest.
It's the harvest. Used it for harvesting wheat, right?
That's right.
They have found ancient sickles in Egypt 12,000 years ago. Okay, 10,000 BC. That in of itself is a mind bender. Okay? Right? Think about that. Domesticated wheat. 12,000, 10,000 years ago. Sickle.
They were already drinking beer.
Wait. Well, yeah. Well, that's the easy thing to do. If you're an archaeologist and you're digging in Egypt and you dig up a bakery, right? Oh, well, dig up the building next door. That's the brewery. Guaranteed, man. They're right next to each other. Both wheat and yeast are going on, and you're not going to travel to the next village. No, you're going to build those things next door to each other. Anyway, that's how my twisted mind works. Okay, so forget about that. But anyway, the sickle. All right. Okay, you got that in your head? Then the sickle is missing from the archaeological record from 10,000 BC to 3,000 BC. Now, I can't, now I'm reading out now. So you read something like that, which doesn't make any sense. And then you have to ask yourself, why? Did they stop Did they stop baking bread? Did they stop making beer? Did they stop harvesting wheat? Did something else cause this? What do you mean the sickle is missing from the archaeological record? And it is. Well, at least that's the dogma. That's what's in this book. But you don't hear Egyptologists talk about this. There's a reason for that. They must have had another way of harvesting wheat, automated, that they didn't have to use a sickle for. And then suddenly they were using the sickle again after they built the pyramid, when civilization started to go on the decline, right? You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
It's a bizarre fact. Look it up. So yeah, you read something like that, and it's like, I don't hear Zahi Hawass talking about this. I think this is a pretty big deal, and it's a question that hasn't been answered. Nobody knows why, or they know why and they don't want to talk about it.
And this gets into a lot of theories of, civilizations being wiped out or knowledge lost, which is, I think, an absolute fact when you look back at the historical record. Because again, even Göbekli Tepe is like a complete anomaly. It shouldn't exist. With what we know or what we've been taught, it should not exist, which means they had something more than a copper chisel to create these things, and knowledge of this.
Sickle, not only for listen, people, not only for wheat, papyrus, right? You had to chop that stuff down. You had to make your boats. You had to make your paper. You had to weave everything. All of Egypt is constructed out of papyrus. It's woven, and it grows everywhere. It's amazing to see it growing. But yeah, the sickle is just important, period. So the Nile stopped flooding, so there wasn't any wheat growing?
It makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
It makes no sense.
Right.
And this is also when you start to get into the construction of the temples, of the cutting of the blocks, seeing the tool marks, seeing the saw marks, seeing holes, pinch marks, all these things that shouldn't be there, that if you looked into that, it completely destroys the narrative. Even looking at, diorite granite and these absolutely perfected statues, did they have diamond tipped tools back then? You can't do that with a copper chisel or stones. You just can't do that.
No, it doesn't work.
Period. So they had something that today we still don't know. And there's a lot of these marvels around the world, even with, finding concrete around the ancient world. And they do tests on the concrete, and it's so much stronger than anything that we can do today. They don't understand how to even make concrete like that anymore.
Yeah, and the Romans didn't perfect it for another 3,000 years. That's the other trippy part. 3,000 years later.
Yeah,
you have to stop. We're talking about a span of time here. We take all of this for granted, right? And we talk about the great empires of Greece and what went on and Rome. That stuff, from when the Great Pyramid or the Bent Pyramid, which is 2800 BC, right? 2750, the Giza Plateau. Greece didn't happen. Did not. I'm talking about the territory, not Greece, the Parthenon. I'm just talking about Greece in general, right? Greece in general. Oh man, the little countries that joined together, the little territories, the little fiefdoms, the little things that came together and became Greece, didn't happen for 2,000 more years. 2,000 years after the Great Pyramid. That's insanity to me. That's insane. Rome didn't happen for another 600 years after that. It's like, wait a minute. Oh, so back to the sickle thing, and I think it's very important to point out. you can see the sickle in hieroglyphs everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Man, they're out there farming the fields or out doing the thing. Everything that you want to see is represented in some temple carving, whether it's a pharaoh smiting somebody's head with a mace, right? Grabbing them by the hair, pop, popping them on the head, to fishing, to things counting. You see all of these things, dancing, musicians. You see everything is there, including farming and animal husbandry, right? You see all of these things, and you see the sickle, but the sickle is missing from the archaeological record. It doesn't appear again till 3000 BC. Yeah, it's just a weird thing that they would have that gap. And the ones that they had, that they found at 10,000 BC, were actually pretty elaborate. They were using, what do you call it? Not flint, but what do you call the
obsidian?
Obsidian from volcanoes. Everybody, obsidian. That's like a surgical knife point when it's done correctly.
Yes.
And so they had obsidian tipped sickles. So I could just mow through that stuff, and then they just disappeared. Yeah.
Huge mystery.
We just blew through the commercial. Let me get this in so I don't get funky. Our guest tonight, and we even said so above, so below yet? We have. We've said the words.
Yes,
we've said the words. Okay, we're in the clear. We'll be right back. Jason Quitt is our guest. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long, featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. Hi, everybody. Jimmy Church here. Very special announcement, and that is we are shipping Fade to Black t-shirts again. It's been almost 2 years. We did a full upgrade to the website, so you can head over to jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple to do, and it's right there. Remember, we broadcast 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. We bring you the best, the brightest, the most knowledgeable and amazing guests, the best conversations. We do that 4 nights a week. We also do 4 days a week. We broadcast the news, and we do that live too as well. It's not a one-man show. I do it with website support. I do it with producers. I do it with writers and artists. All contribute to the show. The best way to help support what we do here is with the Fade to Black t-shirt. And you can get your Fade to Black t-shirt one of 2 ways. First, go to jimmychurchradio.com, order a shirt. It's really that simple. You're going to get a tracking number, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to get autographed. The second way to get a shirt is with a Game Changer membership. Now, the Game Changer membership not only includes a free t-shirt, but you get a private email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads. You have full access to the website, and everything includes free shipping, and everything is autographed. So help support the show. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. The links are below. You can just go to jimmychurchradio.com and it's right on the website. So there you go. I'm Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. I'm so excited that I just have one thing to say. Go Beckley Teppy. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. It is the best coffee in the world. It is. It's the absolute best. Jason, you would testify to that. You would testify.
I actually imported a bunch of River Moon coffee.
You can do that legally in Canada. Don't tell Justin Trudeau.
Oh, it is legal. You just got to pay a tax on it, obviously. But we went through it very fast because we shared it with a lot of friends and family.
So good. Such good coffee. Such good coffee. I wanted to show you this. Our guest tonight, Jason Quitt. You ready? This is hanging in my kitchen, and this is because of Jason Quitt. Isn't that beautiful?
That's very nice.
Hand painted. Every dot is hand painted.
That takes some time and effort.
Isn't that beautiful? Gorgeous. Just it's one of my favorite pieces, the Hamza. So so above, so below. The meaning behind that, I think that there are probably with good intention. But it's something that's said too often with not a full understanding of what it means. It just sounds good. It's a trendy thing to say, right? What's the principle behind it?
It's like there's many points of views of this, but for me, it is a reflection. Everything is a reflection from the macrocosm to the microcosm. Everything is this kind of mirror or fractal. So when you start to look for things, let's say you're looking at the stars or looking at the planets or looking at plants, you will start to see reflections and connections between the two. So, for example, in the work Astral Genesis, we're talking about the stars and the movements of the stars and how it's personified in these stories, but it's really a reflection of the human body. So it's almost like the body itself, the human body is a reflection of the cosmos. And when you start really going down these rabbit holes of mysticism, you start to understand that the ebbs and flow of time, the movements of the stars and planets, they all have a sympathetic resonance with you, your consciousness, your physical body, and you are part of this river with it. So even though you are separate, you are actually connected to the macrocosm. So everything that we see in existence is actually reflected within us, all around us. And when we start to meditate and look at this, we can also go into that field. It's hard to describe, but this is what the masters try to attempt. And they do is that we have the individual consciousness. It's who we are. It's beautiful of who we are. And then what we do is we can shift out of that and move into the macrocosm. So we can move our consciousness into the field of the universe or the earth. And you'll start to see that we are a reflection of each other. We are one thing. So it is so above, so below, so within, so without. It's all one thing. It's just multiple reflections or fractals of that same order and concept.
Now, what about those that say, well, wait, isn't it as above, so below? Now, is that two different statements?
No, it's just interpretation. It's
Okay.
just interpretation. I mean, it comes from a set of principles, Hermetic principles that came out about a couple hundred years ago, and they said that it came from Greece, and then through mystical teachings came from Egypt, and then before that, they say lost civilization or Thoth himself, Thoth the Atlantean. So you're getting this tradition, and it's just a mystical principle that everything is connected to the universe, and we have to remember that connection. And as we remember that connection, we start to see with two eyes or three eyes or your third eye, which means you see within you, you see outside of you, and then you also see, it's almost like the universe looking in on you as well. So you have the connection to the spirit.
Now, with when we look at the modern interpretations of this, which I think came out of Alexandria and came through Egypt in general, because Herodotus, Plato, and others that vacationed in Egypt, the seekers of knowledge, turned around and took it back to their respective countries. And I only bring up, Plato and, later Socrates and things like that. But all of them thanked and gave props to the foundations of all of this, whether it was Hermeticism, the arts, the mystics, and the foundations of philosophy. Their origins were in Egypt, and they weren't just in Egypt at 400 BC, but they were in Egypt at 3000 BC. And these things started back then and then moved forward throughout the world, right?
Right. It's a very ancient philosophy. And this is why it takes a lot of effort to go back and try to look and try to figure out the origins of where this information comes from. There's a lot of controversy on where exactly it came from, but as you start going back, it does seem to go way back into time, back through Egypt.
It's such a fascinating subject, and the impressive part to me is where the history books seem to have it completely wrong, right? Completely wrong. There isn't. I just don't. I don't accept that you can go from, and I understand that I repeat this over and over again, but I only do it to get it ingrained. There are people that are going to see this show today that haven't heard you and I discuss things over the last 10 years, right? This may be the first time they've heard these subjects. So some things need to be repeated. And one of them is a very simple fact that you can't go from a nomadic Stone Age Neolithic existence to a very deep-rooted foundation of philosophy, astronomy, engineering, the arts, a judicial system, of course, farming, and the technical sides of things with engineering overnight. It just doesn't work that way. And especially with philosophy. Jason, philosophy in the Stone Age would get you killed. It would get you killed. You can't be out philosophizing
when you got to hunt.
When you got to hunt,
yeah,
and defend your family. It just doesn't work that way. You don't work with astronomy when you're supposed to be killing beasts.
Well, it's like your day-to-day life has to be taken care of so that your mind can work in other ways. So they had to have been had free time to gather and to speak with one another and to come up with these theories, come up with these philosophies, and that takes a long time.
It does. It does. And the only way that can happen is you have a completely formed civilization, a completely upright, formed, and functioning civilization. So somebody else is killing the beasts, right? Somebody else is doing the farming. Somebody else is doing the governing. And that so you can have the free time to develop these things. And it's that's it. There is no other way to look at it. But if that's the case, then history is wrong.
But look at just hierarchy with governance, pharaohs, priest class. This is extremely complicated stuff to develop. You know, these are concepts that would take thousands of years to solidify into an order and an understanding on how to teach this. And it reminds me, when I went to Peru about more than 15 years ago, almost 20 years since I've been to Peru, you know, you were talking to locals there and the local shamans, and they were saying that a lot of these sites, they were given or they were taught by other beings that weren't the natives there. So they had people coming to them periodically, teaching them about all these things, and then leaving. So they would wait for these teachers to come back, and they didn't look like them. They arrived mysteriously, and they taught them about agriculture. They taught them about architecture. They taught them about astronomy, all these things. So the question is, if this is true, and this is a true history of the native people there, who are these mysterious groups that did not look like the natives? They would travel to many places around the world, teach the locals, build their civilization, help them build civilization. That is the simplest answer to solve all these riddles, is that somebody, some other culture that was highly advanced came and taught these tribes, came and taught these people.
What is wrong with that thought? What is wrong with that statement? I think that the world would be very, very happy and impressed and excited to learn about something like that. And suddenly questions are answered, right? All the blanks can get filled in, right? All those redactions in history can be filled in. And I think that it would be happy times. It would answer so many questions.
The problem is that whoever these people were, they've maintained secrecy. They've stayed away. There's no history that we can kind of grasp onto them or point to say.
No, you're right about that. And I interrupted you, Jason, but I did it with malice and intent.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll tell you why. All right, I'm just going to put it out there. It's that if that is the case, then that means the 10 Commandments didn't come from God. Right? They came from Atlanteans or whoever, right? They came, right? That law and engineering and things, right? Philosophy wasn't invented by Homo sapiens sapien in Mesopotamia, right? It wasn't along the Euphrates. It wasn't along the Nile. It wasn't, Moses floating down the Nile in a basket. None of that. No, it didn't come from angels. It didn't come from God. It came from it, and that I think is the big woof, man, right? That all of the world order based on religion gets erased overnight. I think that's the reason for it. You can't unravel all of that. You can't. You just can't. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube, as Richard Dolan would say.
And the real question should be, are they still here? Is there like the concept of the breakaway civilization? Is there a breakaway civilization that exists that is outside of us because they are so advanced and they've helped guide humanity to where we are today? But they've stayed very hidden. And maybe this is the mystery that everybody's looking for, is where is this hidden hand and where did they come from?
Where do you think they came from?
If I had to guess, I would say that the Earth has a very long history, and that it is possible that maybe there was a species here that did grow that we can't find in the archaeological records. Or
you're talking millions and millions of years ago.
I don't know. Maybe 100,000 years ago, maybe 50,000 years ago, but some lineage that has overseen the growth and development and has kind of edged us along, because they're so far advanced, they have to kind of gradually take us in a certain direction. And if this is what the UFOs are, I mean, that would be a really good explanation for that as well. Is that they're not from outer space, they're from Earth, but they're staying very hidden from us.
Another possibility, I'm just putting this out there, just maybe, if we go back 65 million years from that asteroid hit, we had us living here, and we knew that asteroid was on its way, right? It's like the movie Don't Look Up. Right. And we knew it was coming. We just jumped on our starships and split. It hit, right? Ending, what 95% of all life on Earth, right? It's just wiped out, and was wiped out for quite a long time. And it took a minute, but things got reestablished, and here we are today. But just maybe it's us coming back, checking up on us. And that's, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It does. It makes a lot of sense.
What a story that would be. So again, all possibilities are on the table. I don't know the absolute truth to any of this. Just by speculating, if you take the stories from around the world about the Great Flood, about the teachers or gods or angels that came to teach humanity, it all tells one story in many different languages, and it's all basically the same story. So the thing is, when is the reveal gonna come? Or are we on another cycle where we're going to devolve technologically, or something's going to happen where technology is wiped out and we go back, and then whoever this group is, they'll come back and help rebuild us, because maybe it's not the first Matrix.
Yeah. These are exciting times. I mean, these there are other twists to this where I just let my mind go. But the more that has been revealed, the more that is revealed, and it seems like it's daily now. But the more that gets revealed, I think that the story is a pretty obvious one. that we have been visited. The government decided to start covering it up in 1947. Clearly, that's the year that that the cover-up started. Before that, there was no cover-up. Nobody really gave a crap, right? And nobody really understood what was going on. But you can go back historically, at biblical times, yes, but you can go back to the 1800s and read some pretty fantastic accounts when there wasn't supposed to be anything in the skies at all. But we were okay with it, right? It's the not okay with it and the hiding of this. This is a modern thing since 1947. But the more that we see things start to reveal themselves, I think that that's the path that we're on right now. You know who I feel bad for, though?
What's that?
I mean, truly feel bad for in all of this. Michael Shermer. Feel bad for Mick West, right? Neil deGrasse Tyson. Those out there that that like to act like they're the smartest people in the room, and it's easy to say no. I mean, that's their answer. No, without backing things up with things. And you were there when the beer can sighting happened. You were speaking at the time and missed the beer can. Yeah. But you heard everybody tell you what they saw after that, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know what Mick West said it was on this show?
What?
450 feet tall, right? Right? He goes, maybe, Jimmy, it was a kite. And I'm like, is that all you got? A kite? You're telling me that I saw a kite? That this giant thing, 400 feet tall, in the sky in front of 30 people from 14 miles away, looking at it with their naked eye, was a kite. So I feel bad for guys like that. Yeah. I mean, where are they going to go next?
It's hard because if you don't have these experiences, it's hard to tell people that it's real. Like, I always tell the story because I'm by a lake here, and one year we saw this massive the only way to describe it is like a plasma ship. It just looked like this giant light in the sky, and it was like red, kind of low, like if I could probably throw a stone at it, it could probably go right through it, but it was there. And I was with a crowd of people, I didn't know anybody there. I was at there was a concert festival going on, and yeah, I was standing by one of these roadies, and they're packing up from the concert there. And, he turns to me. I don't know who this guy is. He's like, was that just a UFO? Like, yeah, it was a UFO. But this thing, it hovered over the lake. And then just like a dimmer switch, like a light dimmer switch, it's just like someone turned the dimmer switch down and it's just gone. It just disappeared in front of everybody's eyes. Something you can never, like, do you think that would be a kite or seagulls in front of hundreds of people to see this?
Yeah.
It's unexplainable. Absolutely. So there is more to this world than we know. And that's what makes it so exciting. And to be part of it, it's like when you saw that beer can, and by the way, at Mount Shasta, we saw tons of things. Not in Mount Shasta, Mount Adams. We saw tons of things there. Not just that one. We saw weird things.
Yes, we did.
Out there. I mean, even Bigfoot, like just crazy things. And it's like, if someone comes up to you and says, no, you didn't, it's a hallucination or something. It's like, there is nobody on the planet that can convince you that you didn't see what you saw because you clearly saw it.
It's so funny when I tell the Bigfoot footprint story all the time. And when I show the pictures of you and I, right, looking down at that thing, you've got your ginormous camera. Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah, of course.
And you're filming it, and you and I were like NFW, like no way and it was like the crazy. And you cannot talk me out of what I'm looking at. I'm a Bigfoot skeptic. I'm in the middle. I don't know what the hell's going on, but that footprint was real, and we found 4 of them. And that was a game changer for me. I'm still not fully convinced about the phenomenon, only that I don't understand what the phenomenon is. But the footprint was real. And that was nuts. And you were there for that. That was a crazy weekend. Billy Carson and I've got to go. We're out of time. But Billy Carson and I just did this UFO hunt over the weekend with Elizabeth. We got 20 friends together out in Joshua Tree, and we went to Giant Rock. And this is what happened. Now, we had hundreds of things that we saw in about 2 hours. The sky was jumping. It was fun. But one thing stood out, and this was pretty crazy. So check this out. And, if Mick West or Shermer or Neil deGrasse Tyson was standing there and saw this, you can't explain this away, right? You can't. And this is what happened. So I don't know what well, the sun was setting back here. So this kind of came from the southwest, at an angle. But it's a bright orange, low-flying object. It's bright orange, not yellow, not white, orange. And it looked like, to me, an aircraft approaching with its landing lights on. It was low. Okay, so I'm checking it out, and people had pointed it out. It's the brightest thing in the sky, and it's flying straight over us. And so as it goes over, it's pretty low. I don't know, 5,000 feet or something. Not high, and you could almost see a shape. But what you suddenly, and when it was right over us, there were no flashing lights. But Billy, don't point the lasers at it. It's an airplane. Don't point your lasers. And we're all looking at it like, dude, I don't look like a plane to me. And I get the night vision on it. I'm looking, there's no flashing lights. There's not. It's just a bright ball. But then it does this. You ready? So as it crosses us, gets a little bit past us, it goes just like this. Right into the stuff and disappears. Gone. Turns into a star and is gone.
Yeah.
Now that, first off, and so Billy, God bless Billy Carson, man. I love that dude. He's man enough to go, well, I reserve the right to correct myself. That wasn't a plane. And it was a trip, man. It was a trip. And there was 20 of us there. They'll all tell you the exact same thing what this thing did. And it was just low and level, and it just got just a little bit past us and then just went straight up and disappeared. It was fantastic. Amazing. Totally cool. Mick West. It was Starlink, man. It was Starlink. Let's look at that. Oh, so we had Billy had his satellite tracker software going, so we were able to see what was satellites and what wasn't, and that was it. There was no flyovers going on, at least directly over us. But anyway, yeah, wow, so much fun. That's what we saw. Something's going on, man, and that is a little piece of, for me, a little piece of evidence that just tells me that there's something going on, and I'm going to keep chasing this thing.
Absolutely. Same here.
So I'm going to see you in November, Stairway to the Stars at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. Are you doing anything between now and then?
No. Just
I have to wait till November. Jason Quitt, a man of a million words. He can type a book in 2 weeks, but he has to think of his next sentence.
I'm trying to think of what I have to do between now and November. I have to finish a book, and I have to, I might go to Europe
That
for
sounds
some things.
fantastic.
So we'll see. We'll see.
I'm heading to the UK in a couple of weeks. 10 days. 10 days. I will be in London. Yeah, I'm going to be in London in 10 days. I can't believe it. It's just like, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, going to do London and Stonehenge, and then up to Manchester, and then turn around and wing it home. But yeah, very excited to finally get over to the UK. So we will see you at Stairway to the Stars. I put up in the chat the links for Stairway to the Stars, and the promo code for discounted tickets is very easy. It's Stairway F2B, all one word. Stairway F2B, get you a discount on those tickets. So everybody can come and hang out with Jason and I at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, 2023, November 10th, 11th, and 12th. Between now and then, of course, we will be doing another Quidspiracy. Now, Jason, in the meantime,
Yes,
go build another shelf. Okay.
I have to build 2 more. Thank you.
Yeah. Give my best to Monica, man. Love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Jason Quitt, everybody. Now, his links are below the Crystal Sun. So the links are below. You can get all of his books and chase him down and do whatever you need to do right there. Thank you so much, Jason Quitt. Another perfect show. And let me see here. What is going on? What is going on with my audio? I'm only hearing one channel come in. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin, Webmasters, Drew the Geek, Music, Doug Aldrich, Intro, Spaceboy, SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Tomorrow night, right here on Fade to Black, Duncan Lunan. We're going to be talking about the Green Children of Woolpit. All of that is tomorrow night. Until then, I want you to be safe. Go Backley Tappy.